Hi, I'm Jansen.
And I'm Debbie Jansen.
And we are two motormouth mama bears willing to discuss current events with honesty and boldness.
We are truth warriors. No lie is too big, no deception too small.
And we are sticking to the truth.
Yes, we are, Julene. Oh, it's so good to see you today.
How are you, sister?
I'm doing great. Well, before we get started, I want to go off topic. Oh, no, it's going to be good. It's not bad. I want to talk specifically to our listeners. We do this podcast because we care about you. Julene and I can talk anytime, and boy, can we talk. Two motor mouths? Yeah, we can go forever. But I want you to know that we care about your success in life. I want to make sure you know our purpose. Julene and I are concerned about how we all process newsy information. And you can get some of the highlights we give you on news or in the paper. You can do that by yourself. But we're concerned about how we all process information. So Julene has a lot of experience with the Constitution, teaching history, and her faith all wrapped up into that beautiful, beautiful spirit. And I have 50 years of experience in all forms of relationships and how they impact our success, especially how that works within our society. So when we do an episode, you are getting something that news programs and newspapers don't give you. We give you a plan to apply the news to your life. We tell you about the lies. We explain the truth, but we also tell you how you can succeed with lies and truth swirling all around you. And don't they do that? Yeah. Please let us know if we're reaching our goals, because our purpose is to give you honest information for a powerful life. So, Julene, darling, don't you feel like we are still on the downside of a roller coaster?
I do. And I mean, personally, I think that's the best part of the roller coaster, right? The thrill of it all coming down and that little leap in the tummy. But I think it's really exciting. Like every day he's out there doing something that's bold and newsworthy. And it makes me excited for the future.
Me too. And I can't believe how much has happened and changed since the election. Trump has not even been sworn in, and he already has most of his staff and appointees picked and ready to go. And he's making remarkable headway with Democrats here in America. Senators on both sides and business people are wanting to work with him. And leaders all across the world are asking for a meeting. I heard that Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, hopped on a plane and flew down to meet with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And Pardo, I think that's how you say it, called him from Mexico. Then he takes a trip to Paris for the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral and meets with several people. The cathedral looks absolutely amazing, but you had some observations on Paris, right?
Well, I was there just a few months before the fire, like 5 years ago. And, I mean, look, it's a magnificent edifice, right? Have you ever been there to the Notre Dame?
No, I haven't. I've seen pictures, but that's nothing like it.
I mean, it was awesome. And, we had to wait in line and there's huge crowds around it. It's like right in the heart of Paris, but it was old. It was like built in 1260. So it was 850 years old. And so, I mean, it was kind of musty and black from all the candle smoke over 850 years. And it was kind of cavernous and cold and that kind of thing. And so it was so awesome. I don't know if you saw any of the coverage on Saturday when all the world leaders gathered for the reopening of that cathedral. And even, even still with war raging in parts of the world, Ukraine and the Middle East and so forth, I just thought it was a beautiful show of unity for those, a lot of
Yeah,
important world
yeah.
leaders to be there. I mean, there was Zelensky and Prince William. Kate wasn't there, and Jill Biden. And did you see when he entered into the cathedral, how he went down the line of these world leaders and they stood, and you can just, I mean, whether they like him or not, they know
Yeah,
that they are reckoning with a man
exactly.
whom they
Yeah.
respect and is strong and has a core that is unshakable. And so it's a real interesting time in the world as we're seeing this changing of the guard and how people are responding. But I just have to say, I don't know if you can find the clip of, there was a gal, she looked like a young girl, but I think she was about 39. She's a South African singer, and she actually sang at King Charles' coronation a few years ago, but she's sang the most beautiful rendition for all the world to hear, Amazing Grace.
Oh,
And
wow.
she
Wow.
said it was like a divine moment to be able to be in this beautiful, refurbished, refreshed cathedral, house of God, and to sing, this Christian hymn about forgiveness and redemption and the grace of God. The story behind Amazing Grace is so, about the slave owner Newton,
Yeah,
English
yeah.
slave owner. It was a Broadway show. I'm rambling now. A few years ago, I went to go see it. But the words and the testimony of redemption and revival that went throughout the world, and as she sang it, and I don't know, I just thought, and then to see all those world leaders there, receiving, this new president
Yeah.
of the United States, and you could feel the fellowship and the peace and the joy of kind of celebrating the resurrection of the old church, but maybe a resurrection of a new age and time in the world right now with this new leader at the helm. And so it was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, and can you imagine what that sounded like?
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
the acoustics are in the cathedral are, I mean, Deb, we got to go to Paris, girl.
Oh, yes,
Can
yes, we do. I was
we
just
do this?
thinking about that. I didn't think about it yesterday, but we had a monastery near our house in Georgia.
Uh-huh.
And Ken and Jamie have always been in music and loved music. And I remember walking in there, and Ken, we were up on the top balcony, and it had all the big high tall ceilings and the acoustics and everything that those kind of churches have. And he started singing, I think he sang Amazing Grace. I'm not sure, but it just reverberated everywhere. You just felt like there was 1,000 voices in this one place when there really wasn't. So I bet at Notre Dame, it was amazing.
And to have such a meaningful message and song and testimony of the power of the grace of God with all those world leaders, it was powerful. It was
Wow. And I agree that Trump is making big waves for our country and good decisions that will impact the world. And a lot of what I'm hearing is just fun. Me and relationships. I love to talk relationships. It seems like he's just being himself and making friends. When he met with Prince William, I heard he asked about Princess Kate and how she was feeling and how she was doing with her cancer. He was laughing and talking to people. And from our trip to Mar-a-Lago that he's a funny guy and he likes to have fun. When he spoke there at that event, he was cracking jokes and pointing at people and laughing with them.
Mhm.
But even having fun with all that, I keep wondering about the portion of our country that is still steeped in anger. He had his first sit-down interview with Kristen Welker on, I think that's how you say her name, pardon me if it's not, on NBC's Meet the Press. And I watched part of it and I just loved it. He was calm. He was kind. He was focused. He didn't have any notes, no pressure, and no push to make his points. He was a perfect gentleman when she wasn't so nice and seemed genuinely interested in Kristen and what she wanted to know. Now, she did a good interview, but she didn't start very nice. Very first question right out of the gate was if he was going to put his opponents in jail.
Mhm.
And you know what? He was polite with her, but again, he said no. He wanted to move forward. He wants to unite this country. He wants success that means moving forward. Now, some people might be anxious about his answers. In his interview with NBC, Trump indicated he would not explicitly order his appointees to go after rivals, even as he continued to attack special counsel Jack Smith and again suggests that lawmakers who investigated the January 6th attack should be in jail. They did do things that probably would warrant that kind of action. But instead, Welker then asked Trump about Kash Patel and his choice to lead the FBI and that he had spoken about the need to target the deep state. And here's what Trump said. He said, if they think that somebody was dishonest or crooked or a corrupt politician, I think he probably has an obligation to address that. And Welker asked him again, are you going to direct him to do it? And Trump again responded, no, not at all, not at all. I'm going forward. Well, I got to thinking about that, and I'm not sure, but I think maybe that's the constitutional way to deal with it. You'll have to correct me on this, Julian, if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
He's not supposed to demand that the Justice Department do anything. That's why he was upset when he thought Biden was behind all the court cases and criminal charges.
Mhm.
A president can't ask for an opponent to be prosecuted, but he also, I don't think, can refuse to let the DOJ prosecute if they think there's a case. Am I right?
Well, Deb, look, he's the commander in chief, and he, has picked his cabinet, and they report directly to him in the executive branch, right? He oversees ultimately all these agencies that these cabinet members, oversee. So the Attorney General Pam Bondi is oversees the Justice Department, but ultimately President Trump oversees her. So he's the ultimate law officer. So like any good leader, you lead out and you have people under you, you empower them, you give them assignments, and then you don't helicopter them and tell them how to do the job. They go do it, right? And then ultimately they come back and return and report. But, he's put very credible, capable people in, or he's selected them. They have to be approved, as they go through that process. But I don't think he's probably, going to be holding their hand. He's going to tell them, look, we have some concerns in these areas. Go investigate. I mean, the Department of Justice, I think it's 115,000 employees that
oh my goodness
Bondi is going to oversee. So, she now is going to have to task certain people that will report to her, and she will ultimately report to Donald Trump. So, they're really, really quite busy, and so he has to have faith and trust in the people that he has selected to go do their job. And if they find something, okay, they're going to deal with it. If, they don't find something, he's going to move on. I mean, that's what leadership is about. You empower people, you delegate, and that's how you can, that's how these CEOs can, do what they do. They don't have their hands and they don't cajole and tell everyone how to do their job or, so forth.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking that, clearly they have cabinet meetings and she will report on their findings. And I don't, I love that he's like, look, we're going to move forward. If injustices have occurred, we will deal with it. But if not, he's got, the business of running a country. So I don't think he's trying to fabricate or make up things. That's how I read him and believe him. Now, some people might say he really is going to, sinister things. Let's just give the guy a chance, He's not even in office yet.
Yeah. Well, that clears up the mud.
Really.
Thank you. Thank you. So I was kind of right and kind of wrong, but you put it in a really neat perspective, because now I can see that he was answering her in a specific, certain way, that he just wants to move forward and let success be his revenge. And I like that. But, but, trying to figure out how to re-say what you just said without re-saying it. But it's kind of like you're in the room and you like everybody in the room, and where are we going? Are we going to go to this restaurant or that restaurant? And a couple of people say one thing and somebody else says another thing, and you're thinking, well, what does our leader say? And he gives you his opinion.
Yeah.
And probably, if it's a good opinion, you're going to go with him, but you have the right not to. Is that kind of explaining it in everyday terms, that they're in the room and they know he wants to go forward? He wants to just let this go and go forward. Yeah. And they're not going to push him on that, because, okay, that's a good idea. Right. But then if they find something really awful,
right,
then they're okay to come back to him and say, look, this, we found something really awful, and we got to go in this other direction.
Right. It will prevail. And so there have been some chicaneries that have gone on. He's going to investigate it. And, you know, if it needs to be prosecuted, they will. If it doesn't, he's got a lot of other things to keep his, you know, himself busy each day. And that's what a good leader does. You can't be irresponsible and close your eyes and not, you know, pretend not see misdeeds. And so once again, I think he has a lot of confidence in the people that he's, you know, selected for these positions. And, you know, I'm no doubt he has all of his cabinet picks on speed dial if he needs to. But I think he's going to let them do their job, because he's quite busy, you know, doing his job.
Well, thanks, Julene. That makes me feel a lot better. Now, on another side of this, a lot of people I've talked to, they feel like all this arguing back and forth is new, that we've got a more aggressive, angry government. And I was thinking about that, and actually, I don't think that's true. Many of our founding fathers had problems. And of course, any big project, especially one designed to last as long as America has lasted. Where are we at? 248 years. We've been doing this Constitution thing and having a good country. And yeah, we've had problems, but we've worked through them. We've had difficulties. We've had depressions and hard times, but it keeps rolling with this freedom and this Constitution, because it's the kind of lasting project that's worth it, but it's bound to have problems too, right?
Yeah.
Can you share any stories about founding fathers that had big arguments and big issues, even way back then?
Oh, man, Deb, there were so many of them. I mean, like, the famous one is the feud between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. You know, they had a long, complicated relationship. They met kind of in 1775. I think it was the first Continental Congress, and they became close friends because they had a common cause, right? And they were establishing this land. They worked together, and they had a mutual respect for one another. I mean, Adams, you know, said Jefferson was elegant and philosophical and intelligent, and he wanted you know, Jefferson to write the Declaration, and Jefferson said, "No, why don't you? You're a lawman." And Adams said, "I'm short, I'm stout, I'm obnoxious, and nobody likes me," you know. And so they laughed, and so Tom and Jefferson said, "Oh, they'll write it," you know. And you know, they would go on to serve as diplomats over in Europe, and then when they returned home, they began to have some differences about, you know, how they're really going to put to play the new government, and they would run against each other. President and Thomas Jefferson actually won election of 1800, and it was known to be, still is, one of the nastiest elections ever in 1800 between Adams, who was our second president, and Jefferson, who was our third. And those two
Wow.
did not talk to each other after that election for 12 years. And
They didn't talk?
they did not speak to each other for 12
my
years after
goodness.
the election. And they had been good friends who respected each other. But wouldn't you know, I think it was Adam who broke the silent treatment like 12 years later, and they began a series of letters over the last 14 years of their life. I think they wrote 158 letters, and they're beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
And they talk about, why he did that and why he believes that. And when, you know the story, they died on the same day, July 4th, 1826, just a few hours from each other. And
I didn't know that.
on Adam's deathbed, he said, well, at least Jefferson still lives. And unbeknownst to Adams, Jefferson had just died like an hour or two earlier, because, one was in Massachusetts, one was in Virginia. So his last thoughts, Adam, was of his dear friend. But, look, it was a long, complicated friendship, and there were periods when they didn't talk. But how beautiful we have those letters of the last 14 years of two friends going back and forth in their old age, and it's beautiful. And then there's some tragic ones that, Aaron Burr shot the Secretary of Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, which has gone on to be such a popular Broadway show because of some disagreements that they had. And so, relationships are complicated. They always.
Yeah, they are. Especially when you include politics.
Woo, truly.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I love those founding fathers, but sounds like nothing has changed.
Oh.
But why should it? People with big ideas will probably have confrontations, don't you think?
Absolutely.
I worry that some people think that if you're angry all the time and you speak with a gruff voice or you look mean, that somehow that means you're smarter and more wise than anyone else. It's as if they believe that a sad or angry face equates wisdom. Maybe they think the person who yells the loudest or creates a good lie should win the debate. And that's just not true. Kind of sounds like a bully to me. But I do wonder if the Democrats believe that philosophy sometimes. I hope not, but I wonder about it because it doesn't seem like they're ever positive about life or just even happy with the day. They have to win to be happy. They can't just exist with everyone else and go through that process of arguing or trying to get to the truth of what needs to be done with this country. It feels like Democrats yell at us more than they praise us, and we know most of them don't like us. And I don't want to think that way about them. I don't like to spend my life thinking that way about anybody. But sometimes it's overwhelming, the things that come through the news or articles or newspapers. And that's the way it comes off about how they feel about me. Now, I don't watch it on my own, but I've seen clips of The View, and I just laugh. I just have to laugh at them. Do they really think that all their arguing and hand-wringing makes them seem intelligent? I'm kind of turned off by those attitudes because they seem like lies and they don't make any sense and it doesn't add up. And most of the time, Whoopi, where did she get that name? I got to look that up. Where did she get the name Whoopi? Is it Whoopi or is it Whoopi? Anyway, sorry, off the trail here. Sorry.
I wonder if her mama or her grandmama called her that. It's cute.
It's cute, but it
cute.
Doesn't fit all the arguing and fussing, Anyway, she's a hoot. That's okay. And she rants and raves like the world is coming to an end. And on their show, it seems like that's their goal, is to get you all upset because the world's coming to an end. I didn't like the basic beliefs of the Biden administration. I didn't think they were going to work, and they didn't. But here's the thing. I knew no matter what, I was going to trust God and get through it. So it bothers me when people hold on to anger like a security blanket. It bothers me because an angry person, I'm sorry, is a miserable person. I've never met a really angry person that seems happy. And I feel sorry for them. And that type of person is not good for themselves and not good for anyone else. Here I go with a personal thing again. I hope you don't mind.
Mm.
My Graham's Craft was a strong, powerful woman that could hold her on with her own with anyone. She was very opinionated and didn't mind letting you know what she thought. And if her only granddaughter, Debbie, was doing something that wasn't right, whew, boy, did I get it. She could tell it like it was, and I knew I had been told the truth or told what it was. But then it didn't take very long. Within a few minutes, she was hugging me and telling me how wonderful I was and how much she loved me. Now, some people don't like that, but I did. I got the honest truth with all the passion she knew how to dish out. And I also knew that no matter what the problem was, she was not going to hold on to anger. She said her piece and she moved on. She gave me the information I needed and then gave me the love I needed. And I like that. I can live with that. She never brought up the past. Once we discussed all the facts about my problem, it was over, done. No need to discuss it anymore. And Julene, I try to be like her. For her, it was like it hadn't happened and we could move on. And she still loved me and the world was great. And let's be happy now. Do you agree with that kind of philosophy?
You're so blessed to have a Graham. A Grams, is that what you call her?
Grams.
Yeah. And that's risen up and probably really blessed your life. The ability to let bygones be bygones, that little phrase, and not try and keep drudging up the past and throwing it in someone's face. I mean, me and my husband are celebrating our 31st wedding anniversary today. And I think, I mean, I'm more in love with that man than I was 31 years ago. And it's not that he's perfect. It's not that I'm perfect, but we have been willing to forgive and forget, or forgive and do better, and no one wants to have your sins and crimes and transgressions thrown back at you. I mean, that's the surefire way to ruin a relationship, right?
Right.
And so the ability to, repent or say I'm sorry and to be able to forgive and to bury it and to move forward is really powerful. It actually makes, I think, a relationship better and stronger. And I mean, certainly people that are holding themselves up as leaders in organizations or leaders of countries, they're going to have all kind of rocks unearthed and they're going to have to explain some past things,
Yeah.
and that's just the reality of that. But in personal relationships, that is probably one of the best gifts you can give someone, is to forgive them and move on.
Right. I think so. So, Julene, one of your favorite books is The 5,000-Year Leap. I'm going to see if you can kind of bring some of that and explain to people what it is. But that book helps us stay centered in a messy world with angry people.
Yeah.
So can you give us something from the book to kind of tell us how to stay centered with angry people?
Yeah, well, it's 28 principles that our founding fathers used to establish this country. And the first 3 principles, imply being tied into God's law, which is tied into, saying I'm sorry and forgiveness. Repentance and forgiveness are biblical terms for when you make a mistake, own up to it, say you're sorry, and be willing to forgive the person that says they're sorry. So it says, that the best way to have a strong government and to have good relationships, principle number 1, is to base it on God's law. And God's law is all about forgiveness and do-overs, second chances, right? And then the second principle says, look, if we're going to live under this Republican Constitution where the voice of the people is preeminent, you have to be good. You have to be virtuous. You have to be morally strong. So you got to be in relationship. You got to be able to do religion. That's the fourth principle.
Yeah.
And then the third principle says, and you got to elect those kind of leaders. You got to be virtuous and morally strong, and you have to elect morally strong and virtuous leaders. So it's not saying that we have to elect perfect people or people that are going to be pastors, but we have to elect good people that if they've made mistakes, I mean, look at Hegseth right now. He's having to explain some bad behavior, bad immoral behavior. And I heard him speak the other day that his life changed when he found God. And he, changed his life when he turned it over to God. And that gets my respect, right? Because everyone is entitled to second chances when you turn to God. That's what God's message is all about, is redemption. That's what amazing grace is all about. But we now have to watch a person's actions, because anyone can say anything they want, but it's what they do. And so what he has done, the last how many years is telling. Now, what he did 10 years ago, he's got to explain. But, if a person says, I have been reborn, I have brought God into my life, I have felt his redemptive, amazing grace, that gets my attention, because I want to be able to tap into that grace of God as well.
Right. Oh, I love that, Julene. And I was just thinking while you were talking, we need to get some copies of that book and send it to a few people in the Senate as they're confirming the new picks. Sometimes forgiveness is the best way to go forward, is to say, hey, a person can change. And I love this 5,000-year leap. Get the book, folks, if you want to know more about your country and how we got here, but how the founding fathers used their faith to bring about our Constitution and how we are. So don't let anger rule your life. And don't believe the lies that you getting angry is going to make you smarter. It's not. Probably being calm and looking at life like it should be is going to make you look a lot more wise. So, Julene, what is your tip for today?
Well, I like the idea that, look, in life, you're either getting better or you're getting bitter. And anger causes that bitterness, and anger stops you from progressing. And you have a hard time moving forward when you're just churning about who's done you wrong or what revenge you're going to seek. And so, how are we going to be the kind of people with the kind of courage, spiritual courage that we need to change the world or to change our community or our marriage or ourselves if we're stewing about the past? So give it over to God and start getting better. You're either getting better, or bitter. And I want to be better.
Oh, I love that. That is so strong. That is powerful. That's great. Thank you, Julene. Well, my tip comes again from my childhood. Mom couldn't go with us one night, but my dad took me out for supper. We walked into a crowded restaurant and he pointed to a little small sign, just a little tiny postcard thing taped to the wall. He said, Debbie, that is the honest truth, and don't you ever forget it. I was only 11 years old, but I've never been able to get that saying out of my head. The sign read, 60 seconds of anger is 60 seconds of happiness lost. That image created in my head was life-changing. I could see like this savings account, and when you get angry, those seconds of happiness just melt away and are taken away. I've often bit my tongue because I didn't want to lose the 60 seconds of happiness that lay before me. I just couldn't imagine losing that friend that sat beside me because I was angry. And with my children or my husband, I wanted them to remember the happiness in our home, not the anger. And that meant that I had to protect their happiness savings account by holding my anger. So today, remember that saying and be careful that you respond with with kindness. Sorry. Well, thank you for being with us today. We went a little bit over, but that's okay. Subscribe to this podcast and join us again when we discuss fresh topics. Now, remember, you can ask me a question or Julene a question just by writing Debbie@debbiejansen.com. And thanks again to our producer, Ken Jansen. He does a wonderful job. This is Debbie Jansen, and I'm sticking to the truth.
And I'm Julene Jackson, and we hope that you're sticking to the truth. Have a beautiful holiday season, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.